Welcome to LC Screen Talk. My name is Larry, and this is the latest in my underrated, overhyped series, a video series in which I am joined by special guests every week to discuss films within certain genres that are underrated or overhyped according to general critical consensus. Now, just remember, of course, these are just our personal lists, and we more than look forward to hearing what films you think are overhyped and underrated in the comment section down below. Now, for this week, I am joined by my good friend Rachel Wagner from Rachel's Reviews to discuss romance films.
Ah,
So, thank you so much, Rachel, for joining
yes.
me.
I figured I had to be on this episode as the founder of the Hallmarkies podcast, that it was my duty.
Yes, we
Yeah.
had to get a little bit different of a genre for Rachel this time round, even though animated films certainly could have been included here because that
That's
is
true.
not actually a genre, folks. It
Yes. Listen to
spans
the man.
many. So I know Rachel particularly had some honorable mentions. Did you want to go ahead and
Yes.
kick us off with those?
Yes. Well, first of all, I have one that is technically fresh, but I think it's far too low, is 69% for You've Got Mail. In my opinion, it's one of the best romantic comedy scripts ever written. I know it's a remake of the classic film Shop Around the Corner, which is also great, but I just think Nora Ephron's script is so funny, and I think Meg and Tom are so great together, and it's just such a likable, lovely little movie. I think it deserves better than 69%. It would definitely be in my top 10 romantic comedies of all time. I also have a movie that I particularly wanted to talk about here with Larry, because that has to do with a little bit to do with our podcast that we have been doing together the last month or so. It's called The Beautician and the Beast, and this is a movie starring the Queen, Fran Drescher, and we've been hosting the Francast over at Hallmarkies Podcast about The Nanny, and it's a show that I love. And this movie is basically The Nanny in movie form. And she's a hairstylist, and she gets picked to be the nanny for a dictator that's over in in one of the Latvian countries over there in Eastern Europe. And it's played by Timothy Dalton, and it's just, I think, funny because I like Fran, and she makes me laugh, and so this movie makes me laugh. If you don't like Fran, then you won't like it. It's not going to win you over by the plot. It's a cute little funny movie, in my opinion. So check out Beautician and the Beast, and we probably should have a podcast coming eventually about that movie. The next one I wanted to mention, I think, got a bit of a raw deal. It's a 28%. It's Fun with Dick and Jane, and this is a remake of a movie with Jane Fonda in it, and I think this movie is really funny. I think it's sort of nice to have a romantic comedy about a married couple that are already together, and they lose their jobs. It came out in 2005. It's really funny. At the end, they give the credits. They thank like all the people at Enron, the Enron executives, and all the sleazy executives, and all the different things for like helping contribute to the movie. And I just think the script is funny, and I think they have a nice chemistry together. I don't know. I think it's an underrated one that most people have completely forgotten about, but I liked.
Nice. I just had the one, and I had told you about this one before because it almost made my list the last time I did this series for the years. So my honorable mention is Just Right with Queen Latifah and Common. I don't know, maybe it's because, I'm a sports fan. So just right off the bat, it kind of drew me in with the whole basketball backdrop of it all.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of Queen Latifah's movies actually are a little bit underrated. I don't know. I think she's really good at the romantic comedy lead. She's really personable. She's really likable and easy to root for. Plus, she's so different from the other main rom-com leads that we've received. Plus, I think Common is good for what he's asked to do, and I do think they have a really nice chemistry together. I love Paula Patton. Her character's a little bit out there. The movie is fun, and it gave me exactly what I wanted from it.
Yeah, I really like that movie too. I mean, it is pretty amazing that they're able to make Common look like a basketball player. He's not very tall, but it works out. They do a good job. Yeah, I think they have really nice chemistry, and I believe it. I feel like their relationship happens pretty organically. I agree. I also love her in Last Holiday. I think
Yeah,
that
me
one's so
too.
good.
That's the other one that I'm like, oh, it's really good. But
Hmm.
what's your first in your five actual picks, Rachel?
Okay. So my first for too low is Miss Congeniality, and that's at 42% on Rotten Tomatoes. And I just think this is a funny movie. It's not the greatest plot in the world. And I actually don't think that Benjamin Bratt and Sandra Bullock have the best chemistry. It's serviceable, I guess. But I just think the script is funny, especially the sort of the back and forth between her and the various contestants, especially Mrs. Rhode Island. Like, she's really funny. It's kind of the classic dynamic of a more masculine woman coming up against the more traditional feminine women, and kind of coming to a happy medium where they, at the very least, they stop judging each other for how they choose to express themselves, which I like. I mean, Sandra's the queen, so so she nails it. The sequel is terrible, but I think this movie is funny. A lot of these romantic comedies are tough in a way to recommend because it just depends on if they make you laugh and if you like the couple. If you don't, and then you're not going to like the movie. Like, it's not like these plots are so original that wow, it's going to win you over just by the plot. But that's part of the charm of the genre, is that it's a certain comfort level to the genre that you know exactly what you're getting. You can put it on most genres because there's a formula, and that's part of what makes them appealing. And one of the problems that I see a lot of times with romantic comedies is they make the characters so unlikable because they want that opposites attract kind of thing. But then by the end of the movie, you don't care because they're both
No.
jerks. So, like, have each other. Who cares? So that's the balance of trying to keep the tension in the relationship, but also keeping them really likable. And I think that Miss Congeniality is funny enough that it works.
Yeah.
And in the one you said Just Right, that's a really good example of keeping the characters really likable. And even the Paula Patton character, she's likable. She's not just some shrew.
No, but I love Miss Congeniality. I guess I didn't even realize it was right. It's so funny. Yeah, I mean, I guess in a way maybe the romance takes a backseat to Sandra just being funny. I don't know,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it's hilarious. So just as a comedy, it just works straight up.
Yeah.
So, and Sandra Bullock is so good at like the physical comedy in this movie as well as the
Yeah.
spoken. It's great. So
Yeah.
my first pick is going to be an overhyped one, and that is The 5 Year Engagement, starring
Mm.
Emily Blunt and Jason Segel. The premise seemed fun, and I love Emily Blunt, so I'm usually on board going into any movie she's starring. I'm like open and ready to receive it. This was just such a slog for me. Oh my gosh. I found it to be so boring. It's too long, just dragging out this little 5 year engagement and trying to get to a point, will they get married? Will it never happen? Are they just going to stay here? Are they going to break up? I don't know. It really lacked any type of momentum. I didn't find it funny. It just, it felt like a waste of all of the talent involved. It currently sits at a 63 on Rotten Tomatoes, at least, so it's not like super high. It's still fresh, and I just don't really get it. Even as like kind of a cynical person myself, a lot of these cynical feeling rom-coms, I don't know, they just don't do it for me either. So yeah, this one didn't work. Did you ever see it, Rachel?
I never saw this one, believe it or
Oh,
not.
it felt like a slog to me personally. So yeah.
I'm going to do one of my two highs. And really, I could have picked any Judd Apatow movie, and I would say too high. His style of the sort of super machismo stoner, not for me. I don't like it. I don't think it's funny. I mean, there's talented people in there, but I mean, I watched Knocked Up, and I didn't like it. I thought that it was just a bunch of unlikable people who were jerks. I didn't like spending time with them. The best thing about the whole movie was the ending montage with all of the people involved with their babies. Like, that was cute. But the movie itself, I don't know. It's not for me.
Yeah, Knocked Up, I think there's certainly fun and funny moments. I think it's gotten to this place of almost like kind of a cult comedy classic. One of Judd Apatow's like top films seen by most, but I have to say a lot of the Seth Rogen romance movies just don't do it for me.
Hmm.
I was even considering Long Shot because I just didn't get it. There was so much hype around Long Shot, I feel like last year, and people just calling it so underrated. And I was like, ooh, it's a bit overhyped to me. I don't understand.
I don't know. I just don't relate to these adult man child movies. It's not for
Does it
me.
work for you?
No.
Well, I'm going to return us to one of our rom com queens and give a Sandra Bullock pick for my next underrated. And I'm going with The Proposal, which
Hmm.
sits at a 44% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 48% on Metacritic. So it's under that 50% on both of them.
Outrageous.
And I don't get it. Maybe it's just Sandra Bullock's comedy. Most of the time, she makes me laugh, and I think she's funny.
Hmm.
So she just sells it. But you have her and Ryan Reynolds, who I think play off of each other really, really well. Betty White is hilarious in this movie, and she gets so many times to shine. I mean, I guess it's outrageous and ridiculous, but that scene where they're like doing the to the windows to the wall and they're like around that fire with Betty White. I mean, I laughed
Yeah.
so hard. I thought it was so funny. Her trying to sacrifice the dog. And yes, I'm an animal lover, but just for her character, her trying to sacrifice that dog to get her phone back. I mean, there's just so many really fun, funny moments throughout this film.
Hmm.
And, I think the plot is fun. Again, it's not all that original, but her trying to get her visa, this like high powered businesswoman and her like low employee assistant. I don't know. I think
Yeah.
it's really funny. I laugh a lot, and I don't think it
Yeah.
deserves to be rotten.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because it's another one where I don't think the chemistry is that great
Yeah,
between the two of them, but it's just funny enough
yeah,
that it makes up for makes up for it.
yeah.
And
Everybody in the cast is so funny.
everyone, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I don't love the stripper scene. That one's not that part's not my favorite. But overall, it's a funny movie and it's enjoyable, and I think it definitely deserves higher.
Certainly one of my favorite Ryan Reynolds romantic comedies because he's also done quite a lot throughout his career.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on the raunchier side, Rachel, so you may have missed a lot of
Well, I
his.
mean, I've seen some and I didn't like them.
Um, so I think The Proposal is like peak Ryan Reynolds rom com. It has a little bit of that raunchiness.
Yeah.
We get that scene where they like smash into each other naked.
Right. Yeah.
But again, it works in the rom com sense. It's not like just raunchy. It has like the cuteness to it too.
Yeah. My next one, as far as to low, is Just Like Heaven from Reese Witherspoon, and Mark Ruffalo is in it. And I think this movie has a big heart to it. A woman who is just working herself to death, and she actually ends up in a coma. I guess, is that a spoiler? I don't know, but she ends up in as a ghost, kind of in her house, and Mark Ruffalo sublets the house, apartment, whatever, and they end up having this kind of banter back and forth with her, the ghost, and he's the only one that can see her, so trying to figure out why. And I don't know, I think it's really charming and cute, and like I said, I think it has a little bit of heart to it about how we choose to live our lives, and how we balance work and what's important, and the relationship with her sister, I think, is pretty well done. It has Napoleon Dynamite in it. And I think it deserves better than 55. I think it's a really solid, sweet little romantic comedy.
My next overhyped one is one I know that you enjoyed, Rachel.
Ah.
It's a recent one. I went with Isn't It Romantic? This is the like spoof on rom coms that is a rom com itself,
Mhm.
starring Rebel Wilson and Liam Hemsworth. And I think the concept was a lot of fun. I like, poking fun at rom coms. And I think when it was making fun of rom coms, it was the funniest. I didn't like her with Adam Devine. That whole thing, it never meshed with me like at all.
Mhm.
The Priyanka Chopra character, I was just like, ugh. as an actual rom-com, it just failed for me. It fell flat. It didn't accomplish what I think other films have accomplished really well in I'm going to make fun of this thing, but also make a really good version of it. Instead, I don't know, it just fell flat for me.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm helped a little bit by the fact that I really like Rebel Wilson and Adam Devine in Pitch Perfect.
Yeah.
And so they already have chemistry to me. Yeah. And so, and I thought they were cute enough. Like, it's ridiculous her comparing herself to a parking lot. Like, what? Like, that part. But I don't think it's perfect, but it made me laugh quite a bit. And I think part of it is I'm just so entrenched in that world hosting the Hallmarkies podcast. There were a lot of things I noticed that probably most people didn't notice. Her costumes were all from romantic comedies. Even the way that the sets were designed. I remember showing you one of the spring Hallmark movies, and you were like, whoa, yeah. The way the flowers are and the way the things in the movie, and that made me laugh. I do agree. In my friend Alonso Duralde, his review, he said that this probably would have been better like 10 years ago when like Hollywood was making those kind of movies. And I think that's a valid point. But because I'm in that world
still
with
there.
Hallmark, it still kind of rang true for me.
Yeah, and I'm a little shocked. I guess I see that 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it's just like, whoa.
Yeah.
On Metacritic, I mean, it's a really strong score. So I was just like, oh, is it really?
My next pick for Too High, I have to go with the Beauty and the Beast remake from 2017. This is at 71%, and it is far too high. I mean, really, all they had to do for this movie is get good singers. I mean, everything else is done for you. The story is done. The everything that people want is done, but you have to have good singers, and they failed at getting good singers. And at least for me, I mean, maybe other people wanted some like huge different story or whatever like that. I would prefer them to have be a little bit different, but I would have been able to tolerate it if I didn't have to listen to auto tuning. And also the fact that the design, this weird, like he looks like Krampus, the Beast, it made it impossible for them to have any kind of chemistry between the Beast and Belle, because she was staring at some kind of, like some person in a suit with a bunch of ping pong balls. All the changes that they made, I hated. It's like, well, they tried to change things, which I respect, but they did it terribly in ways that made no sense. They weren't logical. They didn't work for the plot. All the household objects, I hated the designs. I just thought it was not good. And so I am a proud rotten on this one for Rotten Tomatoes. So yeah, it did not work for me at all.
So my next underscored is another romantic comedy staple, if you will, which we've had quite a few on this list. They all actually seem to end up in the underrated category. But this time I'm going Jennifer Lopez, and I'm picking Monster-in-Law, which currently sits at 18% on Rotten Tomatoes. I don't know how Rachel feels about this one, but this is my personal favorite rom-com of Jennifer Lopez's. And I think it's because it has that mean streak of comedy to it that is right up my alley. So I love Wanda Sykes. I think she is so funny. A little bit underutilized maybe, but I think she has a great rapport with Jane Fonda throughout the film. I think Jane Fonda is really funny as the mom in this movie as well. She's like just that. She suits the role really well to me. And then Jennifer Lopez, I think, is a great foil to that horrible character. She's another one that, you hear and you can see that she's such a diva in real life. But the reason she became like a rom-com queen, if you will, is because she does come across so likable and really like warm in film. But this is the one I think that is the funniest and the one I've revisited the most. So I think Monster-in-Law was too harshly judged.
It's not my favorite. That Virgin, like I was talking about, that you got to keep the characters likable, so you want them to win in the end. And so this one goes over that bridge for me. But I can see what you're saying. And I mean, it's sad because I love J-Lo, but she did a lot of romantic comedies,
Yeah,
but
a lot.
she didn't have that many good ones,
Yeah.
unfortunately. So my last choice is an older movie that was very hyped to me by some of my friends, and it's called Foul Play. And this stars Goldie Hawn and Chevy Chase, and has Dudley Moore in it. And basically, she is this Goldie Hawn plays this woman who kind of co-opted into this whole scheme without her realizing it. She gets this roll of film in her cigarette case by this guy, and anyway, and so people are after her, trying to find her, and Chevy Chase is a detective, and I I I don't know. I just didn't like it. I didn't think it was funny. I didn't think they had any chemistry. And maybe it's just like different timing because it was the late 70s and maybe they thought that was funny. There's a lot of sexual humor in it, which can be funny, but I didn't think any of this was funny. And I don't know. I think Overboard is way better than this. What is it, 71% on Rotten Tomatoes? And I don't know. I did not like it.
So for my last pick, I have another overhyped film, and I decided to do a romantic drama. And I went with another recent one that not only has like really high critical reception, seemingly everybody, at least in the little film Twitter bubble of the world, loves and thinks was so underrated and robbed. But I'm going with If Beale Street Could Talk, which currently sits at a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes and 87% on Metacritic, which is a huge scores for both. I mean, amazing.
You and I agree on this one. We're the holdouts.
I don't really understand. I think it's trying to tell these two kind of separate stories, and both of them are hurt by it. There's the romantic side, and then there's the more political message driven side about, incarcerations. And it's a nonlinear, so it kind of like keeps jumping around. And that really hurt the romantic side for me, particularly as all that jumping around. I just didn't think we got enough time to get that chemistry and to really get the impact. So I don't understand why they decided to structure it that way, because you also don't get the impact of him getting thrown in jail and the situation the same as if you had just kind of let us really get to know this couple and love this couple. Instead, we're like back in the prison and now we're back to the beginning of their relationship. I don't know. It
Yeah.
looks gorgeous. I'll give it that. I mean, the cinematography is beautiful and the score is beautiful. The score is the most romantic thing about the whole film. They tried. That the composer did their job and really tried to uplift the rest. But the acting is also fine, but I didn't really feel anything, and it's a slog for me. It really was like dozing off theater level of like, this is boring. Maybe the romantic side wasn't going to get me, but a lot of times these like racial injustice films, they have a leg up because I find the films to be pretty impactful. And this just it didn't feel impactful to me. I appreciated the message, but I didn't think it was done that well.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I'm with you 100% on this one. I do acknowledge that it is definitely not really made for me, and that's fine. It seems to have meant a lot to the African American community, and I
Yeah.
honor that, and that's great. But just as far as my own personal opinion watching the film, I felt like it felt like a play in a bad sense to me. Like nobody felt like they were speaking from their soul. To me, I just felt like everyone was reciting lines, and I just didn't feel like that's not the way you talk to other people, especially in your family. And sometimes that can work for me. Like something like Moonstruck is a very theatrical movie and feels like a play in many ways. But I don't know, there's just enough authentic moments. Whereas, like here, most of the authentic moments are done in montages. And so you never really get invested in the couple and in their love because most of that is shown in these sort of musical montages. So it really didn't work for me. I just didn't like the characters and the style and the way it was done.
I'm glad
And
other people loved it. I think I would pick something like The Photograph over this.
For sure.
It worked so much better and had so much better chemistry and everything. Obviously, it doesn't quite have that political message or undertone to go with it, but I don't know.
I would pick Moonlight a million times over.
Oh well, Moonlight. It's just
Yeah.
from the same director. It's just on a
Yeah.
whole nother league to me, but not even the same. Yes, Moonlight is far superior. No, you all probably love it watching, I'm sure. We're the only two in the world, it seems, that just were on board. But
Well, and tell us why. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
yeah,
Yeah.
if any of these films resonated with you, or you agree with critics that it was terrible and we're just too nice on them, make sure that you leave your own list of romance and romantic comedies that were either overhyped or underrated by general critical consensus. So, also make sure that while you're here, you hit that like button and subscribe to my channel, but also you check out Rachel's channel. So, Rachel, why don't you let everyone know where to find you?
Yes, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews on YouTube and all over wherever you listen to podcasts. And then I also can be found at the Hallmarkies podcast, and both of those are all over social media. And you can find us at Francast too, so make sure you're listening to that.
Yes. Yes, definitely. Make sure you check out our friend cast. I'm rocking the shirt here. But
Yeah.
also make sure you're checking out all of Rachel's content and go over to Rachel's Reviews, hit that subscribe button. She gives really great insight that I think is unique from a lot of us here on the YouTube movie critic scene, and she just puts out really great content. So I think you'll love it. So I love you all so much for your continued support. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye, everyone.